What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Montana Method podcast one more time. Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author of Montana Method. Today, I have a new friend I've made. Very happy to make this friend. We have friends in common, and this was pretty much destined to happen. She's
Indeed.
super active on social media, super active on the topic of everything Cuba, artist,
Indeed.
activist, everything in between. I'm super happy to have her in my space. Please welcome Kiele.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, sharing with you. Let's chat.
Bro, we've had like 2 podcasts in the last
I know.
hour already.
Waiting for this podcast.
Bro.
It's okay. It's been a great time. I've had a blast. This is my first podcast talking about the Cuba stuff in English. Crazy. I'm very appreciative. I can finally express myself.
You see how things work out? Things always work out.
Absolutely. It's for the best. July 11th, now we're here. Ooh, it's been a great time.
You know what I just realized? My birthday's August 11th.
Oh, wow.
I never made that connection until just now. That's crazy.
11. It's crazy.
11.
You know when 11 has like a significant meaning.
It's a master number.
Is it? Master number. What's a master number? What does that
11,
mean?
22, 33. All the double
But
digits.
specifically, like, do you know what 11 means? Like the number?
It has a lot of different... So it represents the portal. Because it's like the portal. Yeah.
Abre camino.
Yeah.
I fuck with that.
Yeah.
Vibes.
I remember when I told you that I was going to drop a bomb on you?
I do.
You do remember that?
I do remember.
So, homie's been to prison. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's like, what?
Explosions.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So, I read 31 books in 5 months while I was in there.
Oh, it's one. Oh, 5 months.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a day. It wasn't like, it was
No.
prison.
No. If you go for 1 day, you're in jail. You're not in prison.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a difference.
Oh, there's a difference. Thank
Yeah.
you for educating me. Okay.
Jail is like, I got drunk and...
Oh, I crashed my car.
Oh, no, Dade County, 1 day.
Yeah.
No, that's not. I went to prison.
Fire.
Federal prison.
Fire.
Not really. Yo, no. Fire.
You're like edgy.
Yo, I love you, dog. That's the dog. I just made a BFF. I love this.
Dog, you already know, bro. Miami is fucked 305. This gives you credibility, dog.
Fire.
This gives you credibility, dog.
Fire, dog.
Honestly, I'm not. Let me get out of here. Let me
Bro.
know.
Oh my gosh.
That gives everybody street credibility in the 305.
Bro.
Okay, we're not gonna judge you. It's the truth.
Bro,
We're all rebels here.
Tell me that wasn't the funniest thing you've heard all day. Oh my God.
We're not gonna judge you.
You
We're
bring
gonna
the
embrace
fire.
you. We're gonna embrace you.
Oh my God, that was so funny. All right, we're doing a podcast.
Let's concentrate.
Anyway, so the point was, the connection I was making is that I read 31 books in 5 months.
Did you?
Yeah, and I read 3 books on numerology.
Oh.
Yeah, because I kept seeing the number 11 and the number 8 everywhere, which is my birthday.
Okay.
8/11. So I was like, that's got to mean something, right?
Absolutely. And what was your biggest takeaway from prison?
Patience.
Patience.
Everything comes to those who... So I'm a person that's capable. I'm very capable. So it's hard for me to wait because I know I can do things. What I needed to learn was it's not up to you 100% of the time. There's things that have to happen, and the world has to take its own process for something to work out. And it's not always up to you.
100%.
For instance, for me to meet you, I had to become friends with Dave first.
And that took time.
It had to happen that way. Why? I don't know. But because I became friends with Dave first, you saw some, and I worked with her, I invited her to the podcast, and on accident, you got to see all those videos, and it's like, oh, okay, so he knows Dave. Boom, there you go. She connected us.
No, and that lesson of patience can be applied also to, the Cuba topic. Right?
Oof.
100%. Patience. When it comes to the Cuba topic for sure, and like what we've been going through and what we've been working towards, in these past years post July 11th. And I mean, my work started before July 11th. My family's been in this, like I had told you, in the whole Cuban liberation kind of front, and what that really means against the totalitarian regime instated in Cuba, the communist regime, not against the quote unquote blockade and the false narrative that's promoted a lot by people who want to normalize relations with the regime. But yeah, it requires a lot of patience to continue to do this work and diligence, because you're fighting against something that is an institution that has ample resources within media, right, politically, internationally, to and use all those resources against you, against the individual, against the independent person that's trying to speak their truth. Right. So yeah, it's definitely been a process. But yeah, that's how me and Daylene connected. That's how I think, me and you have a lot in common, the whole Cuban American thing. Yep. And everything and all the obstacles that come along with it. I know that we were talking about, the identity thing of like, being accepted or being understood as a Cuban American in this whole process. And that made me learn a lot of patience, because it was like, yo, what? Why am I doing this for sometimes, right? The negative idea will be like, why am I doing this for a place I've never been to? A place that I can't go to, because I've never been to Cuba and I'm not allowed to go to Cuba at this point. Like, they wouldn't even let me in. I wouldn't even be able to buy the ticket, honestly. And if they did let me get that far, it's more of a concern, like, why are they letting me in? Like, what are they gonna do once I get there, type of thing.
Exactly.
But moreover, for people, a lot of people that don't even accept you or necessarily take you as one of their own per se, right? But
Which I relate with 150,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
I have two sides of the coin. I have one side of the coin that's like, oh my God, that's great that you talk about these things and you support us and yay. And I have the other side that's like, oh, shut your fucking mouth. You're not Cuban. And it's like, yo, listen, I was born in Miami, okay? That's the most Cuban city on the planet. It's more Cuban than Cuba.
Period,
because
Period,
we do the things that the Cubans would do in Cuba if Cuba was a free country, okay?
100%.
So let's start with that. Second of all, I spoke Spanish before I spoke English.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's true. And a lot of us have.
And I was born before half of you pussies that are coming, sorry for the French, before half of you guys that are coming from Cuba right now, okay? Mm-hmm. So I was speaking Spanish before most of you. How about that? Mm-hmm. Third, Miami, like, bro, where do I go and speak English? Like
nowhere. I feel so bad for the people that honestly like come here and think that they're gonna be able to function without having to learn Spanish at all. Bro. And how deeply embedded Cuban culture is within our community and the different aspects of it. Like, mira, tú puedes preguntar a un recién llegado ahora, and yeah, we're going Spanglish here, people. You could ask them, have they ever had a mateba? Have they ever had like basic things? Never. They've never had like basic things of our Cuban cuisine. Oh, I was literally about to say, I was like, pan con bistec. And they're like, no, yeah. carne re. Right. Half of them are like, no, I've never had carne re in my life. Bro. I'm like, but, or once in my life. Or like, what? Rabo. They never had rabo. They don't know rabo. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
like
many things.
Things that are such a part of Cuban culture. Simple things like, oh, how about crackers from Sedanos? You know what I mean?
No.
These things that are Cuban, they're clearly Cuban things, yet because of how Cuba's set up, Cubans will never be able to experience these things. So it's like, I'm not Cuban, bro. Miami is Cuba in the free world.
Absolutely. Literally. And it's sad because like how we had talked about a little bit before this, it's also intentional. The separation of understanding, right? Yeah, for sure. 100% intentional. A hate that was bred by people being told, oh, that Cuban person, if they decided to leave the country, right? If they decided to not agree with communism, right? Then like you're a traitor, you're a traitor. You are, an other. You're no longer Cuban. You're no longer allowed to consider yourself Cuban, let alone human, right? Because they consider us gusanos, worms. So when that happens, the people inside of the island automatically don't, want to be connected to that. So it's this whole thing of like, validation. I'm more Cuban than you. No, I'm more Cuban than you. And it's just like, guys, like we're all coming from el mismo raíz y todo, en fin, somos cubanos, primero cubanos, de segundo, ser humanos, o ahí están los dos, and we all just want to live in peace and be free. You know, we're working towards the same goal.
For sure.
And I think we have to look for more of those similarities between us instead of looking at those differences, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm with you, 150%.
Pero bueno, bro.
Yeah. And then take it to another niche. We're Cuban American, first generation Cuban American, that actually gives a shit about what's happening in Cuba. Like,
100%.
you take it from a little niche that's Cuban American, that's already a niche. Cuban Americans that talk about Cuba. That's like,
Even smaller.
So, that's why I don't get Cubans sometimes, because I'm literally one little piece of this big thing that can be your biggest ally, because I speak the language where the message needs to be portrayed. And then your reaction is, like, your reaction is to tell me to shut up, I'm not Cuban. Like,
you know, but the thing is like, let's not be totally negative, because I will say from the other side of the coin, the people, and this is why I don't care. This is why, honestly, I'm not going to let that stop me or deter me, and that's why I still do what I do in spite of all the hate that you could get from a certain angle, or in spite of, like, the ignorance that people project on me. Todavía hay gente adentro de Cuba que no tienen una voz. Y hay gente que cuando ellos reconocen que hay gente en el exilio que les importan, eso le toca. You know, those are the people that I care about. The political prisoners inside of those jail cells right now,
like the guy
that feel like they're alone, like the guy in your t-shirt, Michael Osorbo, right now. Released a song with him and Funky. Shout out to the Funky. Shout out to Momento San Isidro. You know, we released a song Un Día this anniversary of July 11th, and it was very beautiful, very impactful. Michael recorded his part before he went to jail. Wow. Like, I would say 2 to 3 years. Yeah, 3 years ago at this point. It's like time's like flying by, bro. And then in that studio where he recorded his part, they confiscated everything like a week after he recorded it. And like that studio none of that even exists anymore. But they were able to salvage the clips. And so we released that song now this past July in honor of him, in honor of the over 1,000 political prisoners that are in jail, women, minors, trans people, homosexual people, black people. You know, if we want to talk about, you know, the minority narrative and throw that in there, because that's a hot button topic now in the United States. But yeah, you know, it's always been a huge support for the people inside of the island to know that somebody cares. And those are the people that are silenced most of the time, that the regime tries to push down and act like they don't exist, like their opinions don't exist, because they're doing most of the work. They're really exponiéndose. And those are the people that we have to be there for, not the critics, you know, not the people that don't understand.
No, I'm with it 100%.
You know, so that's what I'm always focusing on.
Whenever, like, I think we had talked about this. I'm not a political podcaster, but when the topic comes up, I'm going to speak my mind. And I'm very verbal about it. So whenever the topic does come up, obviously the reason I will mention the things about Cuba is because I don't think about the idiot who tells me I'm not Cuban, because I'm more Cuban than anything. So
yeah,
I think about my uncle who in 1994 tried to hop on a raft and died at sea. You know, that's what I think about.
Was he from Malogonazo too?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
How was his story?
So, I mean,
what do you know of it?
He's my father's uncle. He was one of the youngest of 14 kids. My grandma's the oldest of 14 kids.
I love it. Right? It's okay. My side of the family is the same. Like my great grandmother had like 14 kids, and boom, yeah.
So my dad has about 30 first cousins, something along those lines.
Oof.
And he was one of the younger brothers and sisters, and he hopped on the raft with another one of my uncle Tio Abuelo's uncles.
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes as follows, from what I've been told. He hopped on a raft. They went out, right? Mm-hmm. And a riptide came and split the raft in two.
Of course.
And then one of my uncles, the one that survived, just
floated
away. That's it. Never saw him again.
But he's the one that survived? Or
the one that survived ended up, I think, back in Cuba. I think.
Oh,
pretty
wow,
sure.
pobrecito.
Yeah. He ended up back in Cuba because he ended up coming on a plane in like 98.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That uncle that survived tried to go on a raft 4 times.
4 times.
Crazy, right?
Dog. No, my dad also left in 94 as a result of the Maleconazo, which was a social uprising, not to the scale of what we saw on July 11th, but equally spontaneous.
Right.
And
was that the one where they rammed that car into like the Peruvian embassy or whatever? No.
Possibly. Yes.
It's just, I know
there were multiple, but I think that was one of them, actually. I think that could have been the Maleconazo.
You remember when Fidel had to go to like Peru and like soften things up with what was the Japanese guy, Fujimori? Like he had to go to Peru to like kind of
but that's separate. No, that's separate. Yeah, no, then that's separate. That's separate. The Maleconazo was Bill Clinton was in office, and I think there was like Fidel had said, oh, well, if you don't want to be here, whatever, because it was in the middle of a periodo especial.
Yeah, and then he opened
so he was
borders.
like, boom. And then Bill was like, we're not accepting these Cubans, you know. But it was just so much that eventually after having the base, eventually after having the base in Guantanamo Bay, a lot of the people that stayed in Guantanamo were accepted, like my dad. But it was a similar story, you know, made a raft. Like no motor, no nothing. And the thing about these types of stories, especially if it's like your parent or like a close relative that went through this, P.S. they don't tell you this. They don't, like 9 out of 10, they don't talk to you about this until you're like an adult. And they give you like bits and pieces of this and they don't even know how to articulate exactly like the details of what happened. You'll typically hear from like other relatives and then they'll tell you like parts over time.
Yep.
And that was exactly the case. Like my dad's never been able to like fully talk about it until very recently. But yeah, I had no idea that it was just like this makeshift thing. And I thought that they had a motor for a long time. I guess they didn't. And the raft, when it went out, went towards like the west, like towards the Gulf of Mexico. That like, because of a storm. And once you get to that point, past a certain point, like there's nothing. Like it's just open ocean. Like you're not gonna get to anywhere. You're gonna die. And that was like on the 6th day that they were right there at La Orillita when a big Coast Guard boat saw them and picked them up. And he had lost a couple friends along the way. The sharks, swimming, the whole thing, like the whole show, you know. And they were in a storm on a raft. ¿Entiendes? So it was like a super traumatizing thing. And then my dad says that they were one of the firsts to get to Guantanamo, one of the first balseros to be picked up in that whole mass exodus. And the shit that he saw in Guantanamo was also crazy. Like, he told me that one time they were like, they had thrown themselves in the ocean. They were like swimming and the waves were like coming in and out. And they were right by like these sharp rocks close to the base. Pero los cubanos son locos. I don't care. Eso tiran. You know? Ya tú sabes. You know, it was like...
show you how bad Cuba is if they're willing
Oh, no. My dad told me that Guantanamo compared to Cuba was a paradise. You have no idea. He's like, oh, no, honey, I got 3 meals a day.
Bro.
I was having a great time compared to Juanelo. Okay? Because my dad's from San Miguel de Padrón.
So, well, yeah.
Yeah, you already know.
So, you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
The only people who have been able to understand what I'm saying were the Cubans that were in prison with me. Prison here is just like Cuba.
How so?
So, when commissary got closed, you didn't know when it was going to open again. When things ran out, they ran out, right? When, like, no one did their job, everybody was lazy because everybody got paid like $10 a month,
Basically.
right?
Just to get their little commissary.
Right. Like, the government owns everything.
Mm-hmm.
The government controls everything, right? There's no free capital system.
There's no independence.
The only capitalist system is the black market.
Exactly, where you can...
It's exactly like Cuba.
Absolutely.
And then I was like, wow, Cuba's a fucking prison, bro. It's crazy.
It's true. People do not
Cuba's
understand. People do not understand what we say when we're exiles. And I know that it can be even more like contradictory, especially because you have a lot of new Cubans coming now que son unos descarados, and I don't care, I'm going to call you out because we call you out, doesn't matter, que vienen y van, son el cubano del año un día, right, a year and a day, that they come, they say they're seeking political asylum, blah, 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 and then really they're about the shits, like, me sin tumbar, a mí no me importa, me sin tumbar, que no tiene, bro, let me relax. A newly arrived Cuban person that claims to be the voice of the Cuban people, that she represents every aspect of the society. She calls Díaz Canel her uncle, mind you, but she's out here seeking asylum. Es que ustedes son otra cosa. Pero it's not to say that the reality of Cuba is that if you're not with the system, if you don't act like Díaz Canel es tu tío, the way that she acts, that you're about it, you're about communism. If you're not, you are literally treated as escoria and as a prisoner. You're treated as a prisoner or you're forcibly exiled and allowed not to return. Right. They have full control over that space, like a prison, like a jail. That they have to have control of every aspect of what you do, how you express yourself, your timing, your scheduling, your career, your mind, everything is at the hands of the communist regime. Yep. And I hadn't finished that story of the crazy shit my dad saw. Sorry, because I told you he jumped into the sea. Long story short, those Cubans that were throwing themselves, hanging out at the edge of those rocks, there was one wave that pushed everybody up against the rocks, and he saw this guy literally like get impaled on this like metal rod that was sticking out of the rocks, and like they just like saw that, and then the people were like, okay, you guys got to get out of the water. You can't keep doing this shit. You know what I'm saying? And they kept trying to keep him out, but they were just like, whatever, because they were trying to like free dive and catch fish or vibe or whatever, and there's so many traumatic things that Cubans go through inside of Cuba and trying to leave that most people cannot fathom or process. Sure. And people think that like all immigrants go through it, and I'm not going to say that immigrants don't go through things in their travesía, like immigrants from other places that are not Cuba necessarily, but I will say, and I do believe, that there is an added angle of just fucked upness and pain that comes along with being an exile from a communist country in Latin America, specifically Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, because when you are leaving these places, first off, they don't want you to leave most of the time, or if they do, you have to leave and know that you can never come back, and that's the main difference, is that it's not like a home that you can just return to back and forth like a lot of immigrants do when they get here. It's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, I'm reminded of kids who are fill in the blank: Dominican American, Italian American,
Puerto Rican American,
Puerto Rican.
Well, technically American, yeah.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They could be from anywhere. It doesn't even have to be a Hispanic country. And
Argentina.
And in the summers when they were kids, with their parents would take them to Dominican Republic, to Italy, to wherever. Mm-hmm. I even had a friend of mine who was like Japanese. He was Japanese American, and in the summers his parents would take him to Japan. And it was like they were so ingrained in their culture. Mm-hmm. Right? So what happened in my case was I went when I was really little. Like tiny. I must have been... First time I went, I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. And then I went again when I was maybe 10. And then I went twice as an adult. And when I went as an adult, it was... How do I explain this? I had this inner like, a part of me was really happy that I got to go to my father's neighborhood, meet all my family that hadn't met me yet. And I felt a natural connection to that place. Because I've heard a million stories of... Oh, when tu papá. I had childhood friends of my father that were still living there that recognized me. Were like, "Tu eres hijo de Necito." And I was like, "Yeah, soy hijo de Necito." Yeah, that's my dad. Yeah. Oh no, I went to this class with him. I used to go to this. So I felt so at peace because I got to see that part of my culture and my family. And at the same time, I was like, "Fuck, man! Like coming here is." Enabling this.
Yeah, the guilt, of course.
I feel
that's
like
why
shit.
I've never gone, because I just can't even fathom the guilt I would feel, and that's why it's even crazier. Like again, like, I guess it's a different situations for like the more newer Cubans because they still have. But I just think that, they say that you can't judge other people because you're not in their positions. But all of our families were once in their positions.
Right.
We all did leave things behind and make sacrifices and make choices and make decisions and stood alongside principles that we, felt strongly about and believed in. We took a stand. I was saying, I'm not going to be an accessory to this. I'm not going to enable this regime, and I'm not going to let them continue to use me as a pawn. Use my emotions and have my family members as hostages so that I can continue to finance, their repression, which is what you're doing, which is exactly what you're doing when you're going there and you're feeding into their game, or you're sending remesas, or you're whatever, you are playing into their system. And some people don't care because they're like, what? I don't care. My family's there, and I'm not gonna. Okay. Well, how do you think the political prisoners feel knowing that their families, they had to leave their families behind, and the political prisoners that are plantado, that say, no, I'm not going to shorten my sentence. I'm not going to take your fucking re-education. I'm not going to do it because I know that I'm not a criminal. I know that me wanting to believe in human rights and believe in my autonomy as an individual, my rights given to me by my creator, that I am not a criminal. I don't belong being here, and I'm not going to give in to your shit. So fine, separate me from my family members. Fine, don't allow me to work to support my family. Fine, have us all here under constant 24-hour surveillance or whatever, because I'm sticking by my principles. I respect that, dog. And I'm sorry, I do not respect the people that I had even within my own family. I have people in my own family don't want to take pictures of me because they think that it's going to inhibit them traveling back to Cuba. To go ahead, go back to Cuba, hacer que, a dar una cosita, un pedazo de pollo y pan a alguien ahí, allá, porque, ¿para qué? Para seguir viviendo allá, a hacer que, con su vida, nada. Because you can't be anything in Cuba anyways. So you're just literally leaving your family there and keeping the regime alive and keeping your family alive on breadcrumbs so that they continue to be enslaved for the rest of their lives. Bravo. You're such a successful human being. You're really doing wonders for humanity and for your family in the long run. Like, no, you're not. You're like keeping it up. You're keeping all this bullshit up, So that sometimes you have to make those sacrifices and suffer in the moment. And I think that's what our whole country's kind of foundation is on, right? Like, freedom is not free. Our soldiers go out and make sacrifices. We go out and make sacrifices to assure and guarantee certain freedoms for our family and for future generations. We will not succumb to tyranny. We will not succumb to certain things because we know the long-term impacts of those things.
You know what I think about all the time? What would have happened if I was born in Cuba?
Dog, I think...
all the time.
I think about that every month when I'm on my period. Let's talk about it, okay?
Damn. I really do. I'm not a woman, so...
I know, but real talk, though, when I was in plantadas, and I really do think about it every month when I'm on my period.
That's crazy.
Think about having your... Dog. Think about having a period in a fucking socialist society where you can't... There's no pads. Bro. There's no tampons. Jesus. Real talk. I don't care. TMI, but no TMI. When there's no... Un apagón con ese clase de calor. Oh y yo ahí. You know what they say? I'm sorry, super TMI. You want to... so you want to know what they say is the nastiest smell in Cuba? Let's talk about the nastiest smell in Cuba. Bro. When you get on the bus, when you get on the public bus in the middle of the summer, bro. Y ese peste a bollo que sale.
Bro. I'm sorry,
TMI, but we had to talk about it because are you tourists?
I have to cover my nose.
No. Are you tourists that be going on the air-conditioned tourist buses? Are you American communists going to your little field trips on those air-conditioned buses, smelling all nice, enjoying your tropical fruit salad? Okay, we get to go on the super late, delayed, lack of AC, everything broke. It's a freaking trailer. We're like sitting on top of each other. Esa pobre, you feel like you're getting molested by half the people on the fucking train because everyone's on top of each other. Y peste a boca, peste a bollo, peste a sudor, peste a todo. You know what? That's the real Cuban experience. Y'all should do that sometime.
So check this out. I had the craziest experience, and it was, don't tell me, August of 2018 when I went. I went for.
So you went multiple times.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm not going back. No. Anyway, so I went, and bro, this was crazy. I sat down at a paladar to buy dinner for all my cousins or whatever. I have a huge family. So one of my cousins, he sits down with me. These are all my younger cousins. They're like second. Anyway, it's a long story. They all sit down with me, and I'm just talking to him. And I told him, so, bro, if you could leave right now, would you? Like, if I could wave a magic wand and you could leave, would you leave? He said, no. I want to stay. And I was like, why? Oh, no, because I don't want to abandon my mother. Okay, that's noble. And I told him, well, okay, imagine your mother wasn't here. Would you still stay? He's like, yeah, because of my girlfriend, too.
I'm like, so what if?
So I got
what if you started eliminating everybody? So what if your girlfriend wasn't here? And then
after the third one, I just let it go. And I said to myself.
He's not going to submit.
I said to myself, what if I was born here and that's the way I thought? That scared the living shit out of me. And I would, listen, my dad got here in 88. I was born in 92. It's not that much of a difference. It's 4 years. I could have easily been born in Cuba. So my sister was born in 91. Same thing, 3 years. So, and then the thing that really, really like is, I can't even put a thought together when I think about this, is what if I would have been born over there and like I would have somehow bought into that bullshit. Like
you would have been about that life. That shit trips you out, right? You'd be a completely different person. I think about that all the time too. My dad comes from like one of the hoodest neighborhoods in La Habana Vieja. Like the YouTube video, when you Google the place and you look at the YouTube video, like the people that are giving you the tour are like some Miamians, and they're like, "Oh look, we're in Opalaca, bro," and it was so funny. It's so funny. He's like comparing it to Opalaca. It was hilarious. Pero yeah, my dad always tells me, he's like, mi hermana, if you would have been born in Cuba, you would have been candela viva. And I'm like, I know, me imagino.
No, and then let's take it a step further. What if I didn't buy into the bullshit and I was like, because what if I would have been born with my personality of like, yo, straight up, where would I be? I'd probably be rotting in a prison or something. Who knows?
I would have been. I know that for a fact. That's why I finished what you were going to say.
So and then I take it a step even further. So where my family's from is called Santiago La Vega. It's Habana Campo.
Oh, I know Santiago La Vega. That's where my abuelo's from on my mom's side.
What's his name?
Yes. Martin Marrero.
Martin Marrero. I gotta ask my family. They all know each other. You know that's the thing.
That's so funny. I know that's the thing. We all know each other.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. He was a doctor.
So
was our family of doctors.
Martin Marrero, I remember. I'll ask my uncle as soon as we finish the podcast. So that place has a fame because of Playa Girón, because of the Bay of Pigs. Fidel apparently sent a bus to pick up people there, and he was like, "Oh, vamos," and they were like, "Yo, we ain't going nowhere, dog."
I ain't about that life. I'm not fighting for you.
So that was known as the worm
Resistencia,
town of whatever.
Of course.
So it's already in my blood. And then my great-grandfather was a political prisoner. My uncle was like beaten by cops. So I have this in my blood already.
For sure.
So I think about this and I'm like, man, yeah, I would have been about that. Yo, bring that shit. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy to think how easily your life would have been totally different.
I've resonated on that from a very young age. I took an understanding to that about like how narrow and the time frame of everything was that gave me the opportunity to be raised the way that I was and in the space that I was. I mean, I'm, by grace of God, in my own thing, I'm allowed to use my own capacity in this country for obvious reasons. So, you know, with school and different things, I'm traveled the world, you know, like I have relatives of mine and cousins of mine that are literally illiterate, people in Cuba. They're illiterate. That's it. That's what it is. They're illiterate. They say that, oh, no, they say in Cuba everyone has a 99% literacy rate. No, that's a lie. That's blatantly a lie. Like, they cannot write. They cannot. It takes them a long time for them to read. Okay. Like, because in Cuba, they don't focus on those important fundamentals. They focus on indoctrination. That doctrine, right? Political doctrine. That's what they focus on from the time you're a kindergartner. They don't care about all the other things. It's very militant style education system. You know, and it's very scary to think about how easily I could have been on the other side of the coin. Seriously. or just
Seriously.
never been born. Because like
That's-
my dad
exactly.
was supposed to
'Cause
die.
my
Like my
parents-
dad was supposed to die. Like on that raft, he
And
was totally supposed
It's similar
to.
with me. My parents met here.
Yeah,
You know,
my parents too.
So it's like maybe they never leave Cuba, and I'm not never even friggin' born, dog. Like
Yeah,
these are the things that come to my mind all the time, and I'm just on top of the fact that you being born is a 1 in 2 or 3 trillion chance, something crazy like that. The things that have to happen and the things that have to go in motion in the world for a person to come into the world is insane.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Oh my God, no! And let's talk about another comparison similar to that, but on the Cuba topic, I want to talk about the quality of life and care of my one grandmother that stayed in Cuba, and my one grandmother that got out of Cuba.
Bro.
Let's talk about it
That's
because
crazy.
that is extremely, extremely telling of the truth and the reality of what it is like to be a Cuban person born on the island and the effects that communism had to our people. My dad's mother stayed in Cuba, Abuela Matiana. And there's stories as to why she stayed. We tried getting her out. We weren't able to, whatever. She ended up dying alone. There was only my aunt that stayed behind. Everybody else left. Mind you, she thought that she was staying in Cuba to be with her family, and even eventually her family had to leave as well. Funny enough. She died alone. She died in like a shack kind of place from a disease that could have been curable, that the deterioration was like shocking, like her whole body like swelled up like a blueberry, and like she couldn't breathe at that point, like crazy. And like on an oxygen tank, but like the oxygen couldn't even come in time, you know, and it was just like this weird shack thing. Y al final lo que pasó, what happened was that after she was buried, the regime started doing their fucked up shit of making mass graves to hide the bodies of COVID, because they didn't want to show the world the failure that they did during the pandemic. On top of all the disappearances after July 11th, that they forcibly disappeared and murdered hundreds of people. All these mass graves, they started digging up the big graves that were already in Colón and throwing people's bones all over the place. And my grandmother was one of those people. So right now, my grandmother's bones are scattered around Cuba. She doesn't even have a marked grave. She's just crazy. Scattered around. And that's very rude. It gives me chills. It's very disrespectful, not just to anybody, but to religious people. You know, my grandmother was a religious woman, a spiritual woman, you know, very involved in her faith and Santeria. And that's not okay in any way. So that really struck a huge chord with us. And now let's compare my grandmother and my mom's side that sacrificed a lot to get us born here and to be here in exile and be a free, educated woman. My Cuban grandmother that died miserably in Cuba died at like 60 something, in her late 60s. I don't even think she made it to 70. My grandmother now is 88.
Wow.
Okay. She is completely aware, like her mind is fully there. She's had a lot of body problems, yes, over time, but she can still walk. She can still take herself to the restroom. She can work on the computer. She knows how to work a computer and everything. And she has a fabulous quality of life. She lives in a house with AC. Anytime she's had a medical problem, we've been able to save her. We saved her with cancer. We've saved her with kidney stones. We've been able to give her all the care that she needs, even though, you know, my mom's a single mother. Her other children are single parents. So even in spite of all those things, her quality of life is something that like is you cannot compare to the other grandmother of mine. And that just says what it says. It is what it is. So it's the reality of the situation.
I have an interesting story for you. And I've never really been able to understand this. My great-great-grandfather met my sister at 104 years old.
Wow.
In the same room, he was standing with my great-grandfather, his son, my grandmother, his granddaughter, a bunch of his great-grandkids, so like my dad's cousins, my grandma's nieces and nephews, and my sister, which was his great-great-granddaughter. I've never said this publicly.
That's crazy.
It's in a picture on my grandma's fridge. It's crazy to even look at that picture. 104 years old. I think he died in 1998. So that means he was born in 1894.
That's insane.
So he saw the television get invented, the plane, the car,
The
radio, black and white television, color television, satellite TV, like the things. Internet. The guy, this man saw more revolutionary technology, more like it's crazy. What I never understood, and it's specifically his generation, which is weird because, yeah, like that generation of Cuban that was born in the turn of the century, they lived to be really old.
They do.
They do, right?
And my grandmother too, yeah.
And it was just weird because I never understood how a person in that system can live to be so old. And I kind of, but towards the end, they lived on a farm. They ate really well. You know, it's a different lifestyle when you live in that kind of place, right? And plus,
but
if
could
you think
they
about
eat
it,
very well?
But check me out. He was from 1894 to 1959 is most of his life. So for 64 years, he lived like in free Cuba. Or it wasn't free, but you know what I mean. It was. Did you know that pre-Fidel Cuba was the strongest economy in Latin America?
Yeah, I do.
It's
The
pretty crazy.
dollar was matched to the U.S. dollar at one point.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know.
I have to show you this video. Recently, I found this video of it's footage from 1958, I want to say, and they turned it into color.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen parts
beautiful.
of it. It's stunning.
It's stunningly beautiful.
Cuba was like Paris. That was the whole thing. Was like Paris, London, Milan, Cuba, and obviously there was always political turmoil with the leadership of our country from the time of the original like revolutionary wars of los Mambises. You know, that was a trend, unfortunately, in our history. But we were not communist. You know, it was never an idea of having the economy solely controlled by the state. That was never a thing. You know what I'm saying? It was always more of a thing of, not wanting to give free elections, wanting to, retain power for the party past a certain point, but not to say that party controlled every faction of the economy and like the social environment of the country. So that came in after 59. But that, even if in itself, like la gente que vive en el campo, porque that's another illusion, right?
No,
that Cuba sells.
I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I know plenty of people in El Campo that do like my aunt just texted me. She's my sister, my dad's half sister on my grandfather's side. She just texted me saying she's from a part of Cuba that's kind of halfway between Varadero and Havana. It's called Santa Cruz del Norte, Rio Blanco. It's by a station called the Hesi. Anyway, she's begging. She sees that I have a podcast on. She's like begging me. She's like, Junior. Everybody calls me Junior. My family, Junior. Please, like, te voy a mandar video de que esto, lo otro, que nadie lo tiene, que es de mi pueblo, nadie habla de mi pueblo, por favor. And I'm like, damn, dog, that's rough. You know?
La realidad en Cuba, lo que está pasando allá.
No, of course. En El Campo, it's even worse. Don't get me wrong. I was just saying it was that specific generation. Because I don't really see much of, like, anyone in their 90s or 100 in Cuba.
No, they don't. They physically can't live the life.
Right. But it was something about that specific generation that was born in like the turn of the century.
Yeah, I think that, because the real results of communism haven't fully, and even this guy ahora Marrero, which I don't recall the exact position, but he has an executive position within the Communist Party, like really up there. He said it. He's like, now coming into 2024, we have arrived to communism, because their whole thought process, you understand, is that like it's socialism, right? We're building towards this final result. And so in that turn of the century, the people, the campesinos that didn't leave right away, like didn't fully get affected, or their crops didn't fully get affected, and their lifestyle didn't get fully affected right away. It like came over time, as the state over time has failed more and over and over and over again infrastructurally to manage those crops appropriately and to sell them appropriately and to manage, the economy and the inflation appropriately. Now, all the farmers in Cuba are fucked. There's nobody that can work around that system because the inflation's too crazy. The mismanagement of the land is too far gone. They leave the things that they do grow. They don't have the infrastructure to even pick up anymore. So the state just doesn't come and even pick it up. People have whole mounds of calabaza that are just rotting there because the state doesn't have the bus or the camión or the gasolina to go get it. Y no les importan, ¿entienden? Yeah. And they're in a whole other trip, bro. It's really this whole, they didn't want to accept the reality at the beginning. They thought that they were going to be able to go along with it and write it out and figure out, you know, how to go around the system and just ride the wave. Baby, you can't ride that wave. You can't. You're not, it's not going to be a fun ride. You're not supposed to get on. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to have like shut the door from the beginning and been like, I'm not about this shit. Because you can't escape it. Once the train's rolling. And you are going to reach the ending, which is going to be misery and nothing. And that's what we're seeing now in Cuba, is that there's just nothing. There's literally no resources. There's no infrastructure. They're in debt to the ceiling. They're in debt with China. They're in debt with everybody. They're in debt with Europe.
They've robbed everybody blind. Anyone who gives them money, they just don't pay it back. And it's like, dude, hasta cuando? That's why nobody lends them money anymore.
No, literally.
Can you imagine me lending you money, right? And you're like, all right, Nelson, thanks. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean thanks? You got to pay me back. Oh, no, that's nah.
Actually, nah. I'd rather not.
And then a year later, like, yo, I need more money. What? Bro.
Oh, and then if you don't give it to them, you're the bad guy, right? Because that's the whole thing with the blockade, right? That's the whole thing with it, right? The Americans did business with Cuba, whatever. And the Americans even supported Fidel at one point because people in New York, Fidel came to the United States to petition to get money. Yep. So we all helped him out. And then he went and was like, oh, fuck America. Actually, y'all are the evil bad guys. We're going to take all your stuff. We're going to appropriate all of it. You know, boom, boom. It's all mine now. You're a jerk. P.S. So it's not just that I took all your stuff. It's that I took all your stuff and I'm defaming you. I'm saying that you're horrible. You're a demon. You're the enemy. You're the enemy. You're the enemy. And then you want me to be your bro. You want me to keep giving you things. And if I don't, I'm the bad guy. Tell me where this makes sense. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It makes no sense.
The Castros are like that bum-ass cousin in your family. That's like, yo, dog, let me hold 20. You give him $20. Oh, I'll give it to you Friday. Next Friday. And then you hit him, yo, what you mean, dog? Get $20. and then they get mad at you, and then a week later they're like, yo, let me hold on $20.
It makes it's like your crack addicted relative that just like keeps fucking doing drugs and like refuses to get a job, doesn't believe in working. Yeah, Castros are crackheads. That they don't believe in work. They just believe in filling their pocket. And do it. No.
Yo, she does a great crackhead impression. Oh my god.
Sorry, don't mind me. We're keeping it entertaining.
Yo, you want a fun fact about me?
What? Tell me.
I'm really good at impersonations.
Oh my god, stop.
Yeah, I could do any accent.
What's your best impersonation?
Oof. I don't know. You would have to ask my friends because I don't really practice it. It's something that came naturally. I used to watch a lot of stand-up comedy as a kid. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I could whip out the New Yorker. What's up, dog?
New York.
Let me get some chocolates, some coffee.
Do you have an Indian accent?
I would like to go to 7-Eleven and sip on a slurpee, please.
Yes, that was great.
Yes.
That's very good. It's very good.
You
sound like you're from Dubai. No, what is that?
No.
Mumbai.
I'm from Bangladesh.
Mumbai, Bangalore. It's very good. It's very good. Yeah. I've been to Nepal. They have a similar.
Nepal, really?
Yeah, I traveled a lot. International. I told you that.
I've been to 47 states in the United States, and I've also been to 13 countries.
What are the states that you haven't gone to yet?
Yes.
Alaska.
Of course, that's a given.
So you haven't gone to Alaska. No. Okay. Some people, there's a lot of people in Miami that go and like vacation in Alaska. I don't know why. I've seen that a lot. They're like, let's go to the extreme opposite. Let's go to the total other end.
Yeah.
That's like a thing. Yeah. No, it's fine.
Guess the other one.
Huh?
Guess the other two.
Nevada.
Get the fuck.
I know you went to Vegas. Fuck out of here. Times. I can tell. I got Montag there.
Bro, what are you saying? I'm a degenerate, bro?
No. What was the confession? I'm kidding. I'm not say that. I was like, what was your confession at the start? You're not a degenerate. No, I accept it. We bonded on that. It's fine.
All right. 2 more states. You got to guess.
Let me see. Hawaii?
Good guess. Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm missing one more.
One more.
Something really
far.
Far?
Super far from Miami. Super far.
On the other Washington State.
Yo. Good guess. All right. Yeah, so I've traveled to 47 states. My father was a truck driver when I was a kid, so
Oh wow.
we went everywhere, anywhere you can think of.
I can imagine. That must have been a cool childhood. Just like
It was
You're like,
cool.
it was interesting.
No, it was cool to hang out with my dad, but it wasn't like.
So wait, did you sleep in that little like cabin at the top of that?
Yeah.
How I've never been inside a truck, and I've always wondered what it's like
cool,
to like.
because I got to hang out with my dad and stuff, and it was
That's
nice.
nice.
Yeah. So.
Nice. It's like tiny home living before it was like a thing.
Yeah.
You live inside.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
You gotta travel
You made it.
the country
You did it before it was trendy. That was the thing.
way before it was trendy.
Yeah.
Before it was cool.
Before it was cool to live in
Yeah.
a tiny space.
Yeah. It was the original tiny home.
I love it. Isn't that what happens? Like poor people do things and then it becomes trendy and cool to a certain degree.
You're right.
That is like
That's like the whole minimalism.
That's
thing.
like the whole thing about it.
That's
it's
crazy.
okay. Hopefully, I guess that's why it's being cool to be communist now. People just want to be broke and miserable. That's why it's being cool.
Damn, son.
I'm kidding. It's true though.
Broke
Makes
ass
no sense.
bitch.
Broke ass
No.
bitch. All these like confused vegans that
That's
want to be
funny.
communists, and I'm like, you can be vegan. You don't have to be a communist too. This doesn't make any sense.
Yo, you want to be vegan? Go to Cuba, dog.
You gotta be vegan. Go to Cuba.
There ain't no
Tu
meat.
picadillo soya. Burrida.
There ain't no meat nowhere, dog.
It makes
There
no
ain't-
sense.
Ain't no meat nowheres, eh? You ain't
It'll
going
work for you.
nowheres, eh?
Yeah, I know.
Nowheres.
No, that's the whole thing. I'm gonna come on a detox retreat. You know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Go
be
to
here.
Cuba, you will have a hell of a detox. Hell of a
Yeah,
detox, dog.
hell of a detox. Drink the water. You'll have a hell of a detox.
Yo, how about those college kids that like have their Apple laptop and are wearing brand new Jordans and they're like, yo, socialism is the cure and all that shit, and they're like all shampooed and they have hair gel and they have brand new clothes.
No, they do. They're
Bro,
fresh. They go to Starbucks.
Go to Cuba and you will come back with no hair gel, with the same dirty ass clothes you took to the trip.
Absolutely.
You'll probably come back like 30 pounds lighter.
With parasites.
Talking about, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to do this. You know, but the thing
That's
the thing that kills me, man, is like they don't go like the normal people, or they think that they do because they're like, oh no, yeah, I went with the like La Federación de Mujeres Revolucionarias, and I saw the real Cuban people. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? You don't even know what you're saying, bro.
That's hilarious.
Like it's so staged. It's like
So-
fucking Disney World, dog.
So, you know-
and they're out here like, oh yeah, I saw the real Cuba.
So check me out. So you remember how I told you I went to Cuba as an adult twice, right? Mm-hmm. The first trip, two of my buddies wanted to come with me. And I said, you can come with me under one condition. We're going to party our asses off. Yeah. But you have to stay with my uncle. After we do all that, you have to come stay with my uncle. Okay. Bro, the toilet stopped working on the first day.
Of course.
There was no water.
It's nothing.
We had to take a shower with like buckets.
Bucket water, of course.
After that, they were like, yeah, all right, yeah.
This is not the vibe, actually. I had to like walk 8 blocks
Bro.
just to get a bottle of water. This
We
is
had to
not
go to
the
5
vibe.
stores to find a gallon of water. It was
Deadass, you already know the
like-
show, bro. You already know
Anyway.
the show. It is what it is.
it
Are we?
is.
How are we doing? How are we? I'm here.
all
Keep
good
chatting.
things. All good things come to an end, unfortunately.
Oh, we've arrived.
We've arrived.
It's okay. I had a good time.
So,
Not gonna lie.
Kiele, thank you for coming. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You were way more fun than I thought you were gonna be.
How did you think I was gonna?
This might be the
honest
most.
with me.
Yo, and shout
was
out
your
to
first impression of me? Be
Shout out
honest, be real.
to a caballo. I love you, dog. I had him on the podcast
Oh,
already.
he's awesome.
I laughed more with you than I did with him.
Shut up.
Yo,
I feel honored, dog.
Angel can vouch for that.
Wow. No heat to Caballo, bro. Be honest.
I'm
bro.
gonna tag him in this video when I post it.
He's awesome. He's
My
the
first
homie, dog.
impression of you.
Yeah, be honest. Be honest. I like to hear it. I get mixed reviews.
So, at first, I didn't think you spoke English because all your content is in
De
Spanish.
verdad.
All your content is in
Wow,
Spanish.
What a compliment, bro. You don't understand. Porque yo soy apena. I'm not gonna lie. With the Spanish, I am a little bit because people say what they say.
I'm not gonna lie. At first, I was gonna be like, since you were friends with Day, I was gonna be like, yo, she's kind of cute, dog. Yo, Day, put me down, dog.
Thanks,
But
bro.
I didn't do that because I didn't want to make Day pasar esa pena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you're
Yeah.
gonna tell me now on the live on the podcast.
That's my first impression. Yeah, I have to be honest, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. There you go.
Friend pound.
Yeah, friend prompt. Yo. All right.
The podcast is over. I didn't do that. That didn't happen right now. It's fine. No, but I appreciate that. I really do. You're really kind. You're really sincere. You're really.
Yo, that was fucking horrible. Oh my god. Friend pound. And she did it right when I touched the fist. So that way it was like, he can't take it back. Bah.
It was very tactical. I'm not gonna lie. No, I'm kidding. It's okay. I appreciate it.
Listen, you have a long distance relationship. I get it. You're a masochist.
It's okay. I like to suffer.
You're a Cuban activist. And you have
but you're American.
And you have a long distance relationship. You're just a masochist.
It's okay. I'm working on it. We'll see how far it goes. But it's okay.
So
yeah.
Typically, I end the podcast with 3 questions.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Tell me the 3 questions.
So first question: what inspires you?
What inspires me? Damn. What inspires me? Free will.
I've never had that answer. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Free will, that's a good one. Being able to be a free human being and do as you please. I like that.
Yeah.
Free will. Free will is big. It plays into religion. It plays into humanity.
Exactly.
It plays into so many different things, right?
Exactly.
Free will. If it was not for my free will, I wouldn't be who I am, right? Like, it makes you who you are.
It makes you an individual. It makes you an individual with your own character.
It kind of makes you think that if you live in a dictatorship, you can't be yourself.
100%. 100%. Because the whole thing is like, are we or are we not born with free will? The people that believe that we are not born with free will are the people that believe that they can impose themselves on others because they don't acknowledge the free will of that other person.
Yeah, they're using their free will by important. You see
Exactly.
You see, yeah, I like that.
Exactly.
That's dope.
And I think that's why it inspires me, because when you allow a human being to embrace their free will, which is what they have naturally, but unfortunately there are institutions in this world that try to suppress that. But when a human being is allowed to engage with that natural element of themselves given to them by their creator, so many beautiful things are done, things that we can't even imagine. That is what creates the world around us, this beautiful world that we have around us. Even free will creates good and bad,
150%.
Good and bad, but it is what creates our reality. And it can create, a dark reality the same way it can create a fantasy world that beyond our wildest dreams. And I think that's why the whole concept of it is so inspiring and great to embrace. Yeah.
Question number 2, what's next for you?
That's a heavy question. Okay, so what's next for me? A lot of different things. The same old in terms of the Cuba topic. But from different angles, I'm still working on creative projects. I'm working on, different video content as well as musical projects. I have a course that I'm developing that I'm trying to make it like, a video interactive course to educate kids on totalitarianism and what that is. I'm also working on jar _Cuba, Jóvenes de la Resistencia. So that institution, that organization, also education oriented in a way, but also youth oriented, giving the community a space to engage and connect with each other, which is super important now, I think more than ever, get us all interconnected and moving in a similar direction. To, again, we don't all have to think alike. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm about. But understanding the commonalities that we have after the regime has tried to just separate us and isolate us. Right. Because at the end of the day, what is something that we all want? To use our free will. And that is true. Every human wants to be able to have the choice to use that. Right. And so starting there is where we continue to search for our freedom. So JAR, the Academica and these projects, and, continue to fight for freedom and a freedom fighter, that whole term. But it's just like, it's a way of life. It really is. Like, it's a choice that you make as a person, and I think you'll even understand this as an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. To live authentically and to live honestly. And I think that's becoming harder and harder and harder now in the society.
Do you know what entrepreneur means? Like the actual meaning of the word?
No.
Bearer of risk.
Wow.
So you're literally expressing your personality through being an entrepreneur. A person who's willing to take on risk is an entrepreneur, and that tells the world who you are. If you're willing to take on risk, you're a free spirit. you're willing to put yourself out there. You're not scared. Like, you do things in spite of fear.
Absolutely.
You have a certain type of personality, you know. It's interesting stuff.
It's important.
Question number 3. How do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? You know, I want to be remembered as not una mujer sincera and not a coward. Those two things. It's like, I think that, you know, that is something that my family me ha inculcado, you know, of not being a coward, like really facing things and standing to what you believe in, like no matter what. But also being sincere, because when you say that you're going to stand by what you feel no matter what, it might almost sound like egotistical maybe, or it might sound like you're closed-minded, you know. Like, I'm always going to just try to be sincere and like be transparent with people and try to hear people out, but at the same time I'm never gonna, if I feel something is right in my heart, I'm always gonna go with that feeling. I'm not gonna be a coward and sacrifice that for other people or what other people expect from me or what society expects from me. Like,
principles, super important.
Super important. And I feel that way 100%, reflecting on everything that we've talked about today, reflecting on the topic of Cuba, my grandmother versus one grandmother versus another grandmother. Like, being that way as a person in the long run, I think, is everything. Mm-hmm. When you sell yourself and you think it's only temporary, you think that you're gonna be able to benefit or protect yourself by selling yourself. No, never sell yourself, no matter what corner you're put up against. You know what I'm saying?
So before we started the podcast, I said something to you, and we'll end it with this, that I respect you and people who do the work that you do, because it's very hard and there's no reward, pretty much. The reward is very long-term, if and when it happens, right?
Absolutely.
Which leads me to ask a final question, which I didn't plan on asking you, but I'm going to ask you this. Is what you do fulfilling?
I think that I'll separate this into percentages. I'll say 75% of the time it's not fulfilling. 75% of the time it's extremely, extremely frustrating and depressing. And I'm just being transparent. I'm just being honest. You're not going to show that to people because that doesn't help in what you're trying to achieve in the moment, you know. But it's just the reality of the beast, of what you're doing. Things don't move the way that you do. Things don't, you know, you want the world to be this nice place, and you want people to want to do good for each other, and it's just not. It's a lot more complicated and convoluted, and human beings are a lot more complicated than that. You know, it's not like that. But the other percentage of the time, the other 25%, for instance, you know, when you get to meet a political prisoner that you have been vouching for their freedom for X amount of months or X amount of years, and then they're standing in front of you, healthy, happy, you know, in another level of peace. Obviously, they're not in Cuba, but they're safe. They're freed. They're now here with you. That is like one of the most beautiful, like fulfilling, adrenaline rushing moments that you can experience. That you're seeing in front of you the results and the evidence of the work that you've been putting in. That you saved a life. The life is standing in front of you. You saved somebody from a horrible situation, and I feel blessed to have had, you know, two to three of those moments in my life, and hopefully one day, for instance, if Michael's freed and I'm able to see Michael in front of me for the first time, I'll have that experience again. And those little rewards are so you know, special, that it keeps pushing you. Like, you know, So yeah, in the moment, 70%, 75% of the time, it's like, it sucks. And it's also, yeah, it's very difficult. But at the end game, you know that what you're doing is so important. And you know that if people weren't doing what you're doing right now, everything would suck. You know, like, yeah, this is a hard job. For instance, so, you know, the same way there are other hard jobs as a soldier, being in the military, you know, being an intensive surgeon for an emergency room. These things are hard. These things are taxing. They're stressful. You lose somebody, but they're necessary. Because if those things are not in place, the society that we would have, our reality would be so much worse. Imagine a whole world suffering under totalitarianism where there is no sense of a representative republic or a democracy, where there is no form of human rights. There's nobody vouching for any of this. There's nobody speaking on any of these topics. You know, where would we be? We would live in Cuba. The whole world would be Cuba, a giant prison planet.
Yep.
You know, and is that what we want to live as, giant robots in this prison planet? You know, no. I think that humanity has more to offer than a totalitarian world where we're all minions to the elite, you know? I think that we have more to offer as a species. And that's what I work towards every day, you know? Yeah.
That's fantastic. Kiele, how can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on social media, on my Instagram, kiele.ca. Also follow, you know, our Cuban American activist account, jar_Cuba, Jóvenes de la Resistencia. We post English content about what's happening in Cuba, as well as, you know, Latin America, things that have to deal with the freedom topic and you know, anti-totalitarianism and what's happening in Cuba. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome possum.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I didn't mean to friend zone you. Yes. It's okay. It's fine. That's so funny. He got hurt. I saw he got hurt. I had to apologize him live. I had to apologize him live. It's okay, fam. It's okay.
It was
you
like
know,
mischievous.
We're vibing. We're vibing. We're here. Cuban American fam.
Yo.
You already know.
Alrighty, guys. Another episode of Montana Method Podcast. Your host, Nelson. Till next time, push it to the limit. The world is yours. And as I always say, if you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless. Till the next one.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.